Ladies and gentlemen, Behind the Line proudly presents to you another exciting edition of the Woke! Turning on the Woke! This episode is brought to you by Blaming Training. Are you looking for high-quality courses teaching you how to blame others for your huge embarrassing failure? Have you completed Virtues of the Ultimate Victim and looking to further your indoctrination? If you're ready for graduate-level shaming, contact our experts at Blaming Training. Blaming Training has board-certified experts proficient in the field of lacking accountability. Our rigorous program will teach you how to never take responsibility for your own failures. If you're a constant failure looking to escape shame, jump aboard the Bruce Caboose and we'll teach you how to shift blame. Sign up today at blamingtraining.com. You know, I think it is fascinating how some people, some organizations, mainly those who attend Sunday morning services at Woke United Methodist, I think it is fascinating how they are always looking to blame someone else for their huge embarrassing failure. Here on the channel, we have been covering the huge embarrassing failure better known as the National Basketball Association for years now. 3 or 4 years, we have extensively covered the declining ratings in the NBA. In that time, I cannot think of a single instance where Adam Silver and the NBA have blamed themselves for their own failure. They blamed cord cutting, then they turn around and accept $77 billion from television networks that require a cord. They blamed competition from the presidential election or Major League Baseball. Hell, I guess they'll be calling fake wrestling stiff competition next because more people watched grown men in underwear passionately pretending to spank each other than the number of people who watched the semifinals of that doofus NBA Cup. In all these years covering the declining ratings in the NBA, there has not been a single instance where, at least me, I remember the NBA blaming themselves. And look. It is not just the NBA who refuses to accept responsibility for their own failure. We are seeing it right now in cable news. For years, maybe even decades, the dump divers in the WNBA, they have blamed mythical racism and mythical misogyny for their lifetime achievement of embarrassing failure. Instead of looking in the mirror and asking, how can we make women's basketball more appealing? WNBA players, they demanded, please stop playing the national anthem, I'm so tired of kneeling. Perhaps blaming others for your failures is natural to some people. Me personally, I try not to waste my time blaming others because I can't control them. I can't control what they do. If my analytics are declining for reasons other than the typical ebbs and flows of the year, I ask myself, what the hell I'm doing wrong? What can I do better to increase the size of my audience? We are 6 weeks removed from the presidential election. 6 weeks! And I have yet to see cackling Cam Harris blame herself. I have yet to see cackling Cam Harris explain what she could have done better. Hell, besides that one video where she appeared to have overindulged on Lucifer's liquid, I haven't seen Cam Harris, period. But yesterday, her campaign manager spoke to the media. He gave an exclusive interview to something called Semafor. Casey, what the hell is a semaphore? I have no idea. I imagine most normal people never heard of it, which would explain why Cam Harris lost the election because she is completely out of touch with normal people. But to their credit, this interview with Semafor, it was very revealing because it showed where the Cam Harris campaign places some of the blame or maybe even most of the blame for their huge embarrassing failure. Even though they didn't explicitly say it, the reference was made subtly. According to this article, one of the reasons that Cam Harris lost the election was a complete lack of support from woke athletes and woke media. If you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. If you want to cast your vote in the upcoming second annual Huge Embarrassing Failure Awards, the link to vote is in the description below. The lovely Cam Harris was included on the ballot this year. I know some of you guys want separate categories, and we might start doing that next year. I might even separate it this year between sports and politics. The way I set the poll up, there are 3 candidates for cable news and media and 4 candidates for sports. So, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I'll see how the voting goes. I might separate them into categories and there might be 2 winners. But me personally, I just think it's better to have one winner. So, I don't know. We'll see. Either way, if you want to vote for the second annual HEF Awards, link is in the description below. Rob Flaherty was the deputy campaign manager for Cam Harris during the election cycle. He was partially responsible for the flaming ass fire that we witnessed the last 4 or 5 months. I know nothing about Rob Flaherty. This is the first I've ever heard of him, but in his defense, while I was reading this interview, and I read it several times today, I got the impression that Rob was an intelligent dude. There were a couple of quotes where I thought, this dude actually gets it. But then there were others where I thought, why is he subtly blaming others when the real reason this campaign was a failure is because of their unlikable, unrelatable candidate? He started the article by claiming, and this is not quoted verbatim, sports and politics have merged together, and as sports became more associated with the values of Donald Trump, it got more complicated for athletes to support us publicly. What? Excuse me? Come again? Let me make sure I'm understanding you correctly. Now, did we see an increase this year of athletes publicly supporting the Trumper? Yes. But the last few years, sports have been 100% infected with the woke fungus. Sports and politics did not merge together. The fungus of politics infected our sports leagues. It was not voluntary, at least from a fan perspective. The NBA is woker than a tweaker in a chemistry lab. The WNBA has a terminal case of stage 4 OMB. Orange Man bad! The NFL flirted with the woke fungus, but I guess they made sure to get vaccinated. NFL never really committed to woke United Methodist. They simply pretended to commit to appease the mainstream media. The only difference this year, the politics in sports, it was actually balanced. You had athletes supporting the Trumper and you had others supporting Cam Harris. But what was interesting about this balance was how Rob Flaherty explained how it negatively impacted cackling Cam Harris. According to Rob, sports media personalities who lean left or who are far left, they refuse to allow Cam Harris on their platforms, on their shows. They wouldn't interview her, they wouldn't talk about her, they damn sure would not publicly endorse her. Rob refused to name names as to who turned Cam Harris down, but the writer of the article, they mentioned possibilities like Bill Simmons, Colin Cowherd, Travis Swiffer, formerly known by his maiden name Travis Kelce. But why though? Why do you think they turned down the opportunity to potentially interview the future president, to interview Cam Harris? They were afraid to alienate their audience. They were afraid to piss people off. They refused to allow their platforms to be exploited by a candidate that they knew was going to lose. Rob Flaherty flat out said it. They were terrified of their audience. He also talked about athletes and celebrities along with media personalities who were comfortable endorsing Johnny B. Biden being unwilling to do the same for Cam Harris. Why? It was racism! It was misogyny! They were afraid to see a strong black woman succeed! Surprisingly enough, Rob Flaherty, he did not put the blame on the usual woke boner words. He didn't blame racism. He didn't blame misogyny. This is one of the parts where I thought this guy actually gets it. He blamed their unwillingness on the fact that the Democrats have lost their influence on the culture. He claimed it was no longer cool to talk about politics, which, in my opinion, that is a partial truth. This is another case of someone trying to service the shit sandwich. Jason Whitlock, he seemed to do okay talking about sports and politics. Clay Travis, yours truly, other conservative YouTubers, Joe Rogan. Theo Vaughn is a comedian. The dude used to be on MTV. He seemed to thrive talking about politics. It's not that it was no longer cool to talk about politics. It's that it was no longer cool and no longer acceptable for most people to talk about woke politics. And cackling Cam Harris became the face of woke politics. Rob Flaherty also threw a devastating shot at the mainstream media. This dude showed no mercy. He had no problem kicking the media while they're down. He claimed there was no value in Cam Harris speaking to the Washington Post, the New York Times, ESPN, USA Today. There was no value in speaking with them because they already had the votes of their dwindling audience. He also talked about the overall distrust and the rapidly fading relevance and influence of the mainstream media. Long story short, he subtly blamed woke athletes and sports leagues along with the mainstream media. He subtly blamed them being out of touch with normal people as one of the reasons that Cam Harris lost. And you know what? He's not wrong. That definitely played a critical role in Cam Harris losing, but it wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered if LeBron James and Steph Curry still had the influence to sway the vote. Wouldn't have mattered if Cam Harris was given the opportunity to speak with sports podcasters and sports radio hosts. Throughout the entire article, I didn't see Rob Flaherty blame the one person responsible for this huge embarrassing failure. Now, in his defense, I didn't expect him to either, at least not publicly, but the reason Cam Harris lost, it's because Cam Harris is not electable. It didn't matter how much publicity, how many endorsements, or how much support she had or did not have, Cam Harris was going to lose this election. Give me your thoughts on this. Cam Harris's campaign manager kicks the mainstream media while they're down, talks about the overall distrust in the mainstream media and their fading influence. He subtly blames them for not giving Cam the same opportunities for interviews and endorsements that they gave Johnny B. Biden. Who is most at fault for this embarrassing failure? Media, woke celebrities, woke athletes, or Cam Harris? Sound off in the comments below. Best way to contact me is through email, btlkc84@gmail.com. I'll see you guys tomorrow.